How tipping culture finally broke Americans. Now, guys, I'm really, really curious to see what this video is going to be about, because I just got back from the US and I experienced the tipping culture. When I tell you, as a Brit, it was way more than what I was I've ever experienced in my life, because it's way more of a thing in the US than it is in the UK. So hence why we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into the whole tipping culture in this video, because it sparked my curiosity, and I'll be very curious to see what a lot of you guys think about this tipping culture, whether you agree or disagree, whether it's gotten out of control. Yeah, this was going to be really interesting. But of course, guys, look in the top right, left side of the screen, you're going to see my live subscriber count right here. Subscribe to the channel, guys, road to 60k. And of course, don't forget to like the video as well. But of course, guys, look, with that being said, enough jibber jabber. Let's get straight into the video. Let's go.
Today, nearly 9 in 10 Americans think tipping culture has gotten out of control. The uniquely American practice of tipping, which is far less common in other countries, has expanded rapidly beyond traditional service roles like waitstaff, bartenders, and hairdressers.
If you feel like you're being asked to tip everywhere and leave more money than usual, well, you're not alone.
Today, consumers are facing tipping prompts in places they never expected and in ways they were never used to.
Yo, wait, did I just see what I think? 99%?
They never expected and in ways...
That's gotta be fake. 99% suggested tip. Are you serious? You are taking the mickey if you think I'm tipping 99%. You'll be lucky if I tip 5%. If that. Whoa, that's gotta be fake. No way you're ever getting charged or getting suggested 99% tip. You guys let me know, man. You guys let me know, because that's crazy. Even 50 and 29% is the shortest. That's crazy. Are you
used to? Coffee counters, takeout windows, pest control, and even self-checkout kiosks. Sometimes where there's literally no human interaction. And it's not just the absurdity of where tips are being asked for. It's also how we're being asked. You're handed a screen, you're prompted with percentages, sometimes before the product's even in your hand, and you're forced to make a choice in real time. Being guilted into tipping for something that isn't technically a service, it's just someone doing their job, starts to feel less like appreciation and more like pressure. Now look, I'll admit, the traditional categories of who does and doesn't get tipped have never been totally consistent, and you could even argue it doesn't make sense. But that's not what this video is really about. This video is about where the line is, how it keeps moving, and why solving this problem isn't as easy as it sounds. The origins of tipping can be traced back to medieval Europe, where wealthy patrons would offer money to servants to ensure promptitude. It was a symbol of class, a way for the rich to flaunt their generosity or their power, and eventually in the early 1900s, the practice faded across much of Europe, but in the US, it started to take over, and since then it's only increased. After the US Civil War, tipping was adopted as a loophole to avoid paying newly freed black workers full wages, especially in hospitality and rail industry.
Oh, that's wild. Oh, that's wild. After the Civil War is a way to avoid paying them full. Yeah, if that's true, especially, I did not know that. I did not know that. If you guys knew that, let me know, because that's dark.
Increased.
That's dark.
After the US Civil War, tipping was adopted as a loophole to avoid paying newly freed black workers full wages, especially in hospitality and rail industries. It allowed employers to offload compensation onto customers, reinforcing a two-tiered labor structure that still exists today. Even now, the federal tipped minimum wage remains at just $2.13 an hour, a number that hasn't changed since 1991. If tips don't bring workers up to the federal minimum wage of $7.25, the employers...
Wait, I don't understand. How is it that, the federal minimum wage for tipped workers is $2.13. The main minimum. Okay, so tipped. No wonder why tipping is more of a thing. If that's minimum wage and people are dependent on tips like that, that's crazy. And even $7 minimum wage in the UK, I'd have to put on the screen what it is in the UK minimum wage. I don't think we have it like that, where it's like minimum workers or tip, like federal minimum wage for tipped workers is $2. $2.13 is that's nothing. I didn't think it was that low. No way it's that low. And it's been like that since 1991. Yeah, I did not know that. That's crazy. That's actually insane. That's insane.
Make
What?
up the difference. But enforcement here is kind of shaky, and in many states, this rate can vary because they have their own sub-minimum state wage. So tipping in a
No, that's generally shock to me. I gotta look into this. Wait, guys, what is this? $2.13 in most states. 11. So it's not as bad in other places. But $2.13 is crazy, and that's dollars as well. That's like £1 something. Jeez.
this rate can vary because they have their own sub-minimum state wage. So tipping in America isn't just some tradition, it's literally policy. And many claim it's a major problem because companies can avoid paying their workers directly.
Right.
Now, I used to work in the restaurant industry
what if
as
you
a
don't get
server,
tips?
so I'm very familiar with tipping culture, and I've seen how widely people view tipping. How much to tip, if they were to tip more, if they really enjoyed the service and food, or if it didn't really matter all that much and they would just tip 20% regardless of their experience. Today, Americans still don't have a unanimous view on tipping, besides agreeing on the current state of it being out of control. Now let's back up to pre-COVID for a moment.
Interesting.
I would argue that the 4 most common places I expected to tip someone was in a full-service bar or restaurant, a haircut, or a ride service. Beyond those, tipping anywhere else used to feel optional. If I did tip, it wasn't expected to be the same percentage as I would, say, if I was in a full-service restaurant. Tipping was tied to effort, attentiveness, and the human side of hospitality. And crucially, it happened after the experience. At full-service restaurants, you were handed a bill, left alone, and made the decision privately. You were gauging the level of service you received. Often the server didn't even know what you tipped until after you were gone. It was your call, made on your terms. And that does still exist today to some extent, but mostly today the experience has flipped. A recent study from the Pew Research Center found that 72% of Americans believe tipping is expected in more places today than 5 years ago, thanks in part to modern POS systems. That's point of sale, not what you were probably thinking. But tipping has been baked into the process before the service is even completed, and often the screen is handed to you or spun around with the worker watching. It's not a quiet gesture anymore, it's a performance. Tipping has gone from omission to commission. You're not just skipping the tip jar at your local coffee shop anymore. You're pressing no tip on a screen in public with eye contact. And that physical experience matters because it amplifies the guilt. There's no time to really reflect. There's no buffer to make a decision. It's instant and it's emotional. The US is also one of
No, I literally experienced that. Like I was literally paying for these hot dog rolls. I forgot the name of it. These pretzel dogs. Whatever, I forgot the name, but I was like in the airport and I was paying for it. And then as I was paying for it, I forgot I was in the US. Because you don't have this in the UK, where I'm about to pay for it, check out, and I see a screen saying, "No, how much you want to tip?" I'm like, "Yo, like, I haven't even had the food yet." That was just weird to me. I that just kind of threw me off a bit. I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, I kind of felt like, is this normal? Like, because you see, I'm the type of person I like to assimilate to where I go. Like, I try and adopt the culture and try and understand it from the lens of the culture. So I was thinking, this is just the norm and this is normal. So I was like, okay, let me do it. But now when I see videos like this and I hear like, oh, even some Americans are like, yo, that's a bit mad before you even gotten the service, before you even got the food. Yeah, that's when I was like, oh, okay, all right. If some of you Americans think that's mad, then yeah, wow. That's interesting.
Developed countries that still relies heavily on tipping as a wage supplement. In many parts of Europe and Asia, tipping is rare or modest at best because workers are paid actual wages by their employers. And I know some Americans may be shocked to learn of this concept. But in Japan, tipping is often considered insulting. And in Australia, service workers are paid well enough that tipping isn't expected. But here in the US, tipping isn't a bonus. It's literally the business model. And not just for the workers, for other players too. Over time, this cultural norm has solidified into economic infrastructure. Tipping is no longer about exceptional service. It's become the expected default, whether service happened or not. It feels much more like an additional fee to the cost of service or good you received. But I want to be absolutely clear, this is not an attack on workers. There are over 5.5 million tipped workers in the US alone. Many of them rely on tips, not necessarily because they want to, but because they have to.
Yeah,
this video
that's
isn't about blaming them.
different.
It's more about questioning the system that we've all been trapped in. I think workers just...
Yeah, that's got nothing to do with the workers. Like, that's not their fault that they, have to depend on tip if they want to get a decent salary. Right? What would you guys think? Like, because even to me, it's shock. Like, I'm in a country where that's not a thing. Like, you get what, like, if you work in like a tipping place kind of job where, like a waiter or something like that, like, you get paid a good, like a solid salary, at least the minimum wage, which is it was way higher than what I saw that early pick, like that $2.13. So I kind of feel really bad now that I'm thinking about it, that it's like that in the US. That's kind of mad to think about. But then again, like, I'm learning. Like, I don't even know the ins and outs of it. Like I said, that's why I'm here today, saying this is like really baked into the economy and how the structures are. Do you guys feel like it should be changed? I don't know. You
deserve better. They deserve stability, consistency, and certainly respect.
Sounds mad to me.
But the point is, this burden shouldn't fall on the consumer, at least not to this degree. Especially now with prices being higher than ever. And if we're already paying more for everything, why are we also being guilted into floating someone else's payroll? A perfect example of this is Starbucks and Chipotle. They both have an option to tip for their mobile takeout orders before you even get it, which is just insane to me. These companies make billions of dollars, literally billions. But even putting that aside for a moment, how is it right to ask for a tip ahead of time before I've even received the product?
Yeah,
now, of course, this doesn't even get to the point of there was really no service provided. It was just someone doing their job and me paying for that. But now, with being prompted with these options to tip, I'm left feeling like this is a bribe to get what I'm already paying for to begin with. And this breaking point in tipping culture didn't happen by accident. Point of sale systems like Square, Toast, and Clover made tipping a default part of their checkout experiences. They made it frictionless, seamless, and almost invisible. Businesses enhanced their payment systems with these products, and now the machine is doing it for them. Companies realized very quickly if customers were willing to tip in more places, maybe they didn't have to raise wages, at least not as much. They could externalize labor costs and shift the burden to you. They could keep menu prices from rising further, or at least make it seem that way, while offloading the responsibility of fair compensation onto the customer. Meanwhile, the POS companies themselves get a cut. They charge monthly fees for hardware and subscriptions, plus a percentage of every transaction. So when you tip more, they earn more. It's another mouth to feed in this food chain. The user interface is training us to accept this as normal, and by now, most of these companies are public companies with entire business models centered around this. You're not just tipping the worker, you're feeding a system that monetizes generosity forced by social pressures. And because tipping is now expected in more places for more things with less service, it's not really about rewarding effort anymore. It's become a subsidy for the business model. And this isn't just me saying so. Nearly 3 in 5 Americans think businesses are shifting the responsibility of paying employees onto the customer through tips.
That's what it looks like.
So at this point, everyone agrees tipping feels broken, but no one agrees on how to fix it. In fact, Americans are extremely divided on how to tackle the tipping problem. According to Wallet Hub, 83% of Americans think automatic service charges should be banned. So while people don't like being pressured to tip, they're also not completely comfortable with businesses deciding the tip for them either.
So that survey found that 61% of consumers would rather just pay a higher price. So they'd just rather pay higher prices on the menu, and then that would compensate and pay for the wages of the workers, right? They don't want the hassle of the tipping. They just want to pay more. But, some experts say, would they really? They're so fed up with inflation. If you said, okay, we're going to get rid of tips, but we're going to just raise prices, would they really pay? There's some doubt that they would really pay higher menu prices.
I think ultimately consumers want agency. They don't want to be manipulated, but they also don't want that decision to be taken away from them completely. And that's the paradox. Now, restaurants push back on the notion that they could just replace tips with higher wages. While there are some examples of restaurants doing this, it's hard to achieve when the rest of the market doesn't participate. Here's why. Once you raise wages, you usually have to raise menu prices. And of course, customers begin to notice. But the twist is they don't always process those changes rationally. They may see a $20 burger meal and decide to walk away because it's too expensive. But that price could include fair wages with no tip. Meanwhile, let's say they see a $14 burger meal with an expected tip. They might think that feels more normal, even though it ends up costing them roughly the same. For servers, tips can be a gamble,
true.
but sometimes a profitable one. On a good night, tipping can bring in far more than a fixed hourly rate, and that potential upside makes some workers hesitant to give up this system as a whole, even if it is unpredictable, or even if over time they would have a more stable income. They just may not see it like that. Tipping also gives customers some sense of control. They can leave less if they're unhappy, or even nothing at all. Although as a former server, I can say that was extremely rare to see. But when higher wages are baked into food prices, that flexibility disappears, and so does the illusion of choice. And here's the bigger, quieter reason all of this hasn't changed, at least within the restaurant industry. The National Restaurant Association has lobbied for decades to keep the tipped wages system intact. They've consistently fought minimum wage increases for restaurant workers at the federal level. Because higher wages mean higher labor costs. And like with most trade groups, their loyalty lies with the business side of things and not with the workers or customers caught in between. So where does this all leave us with tipping culture? Do I think it's possible to fix the problem? Yeah, I do, but I don't think it will happen anytime soon. Too many people stand to lose too much money right now. From POS providers to restaurants, gig economy apps like Uber, and even some workers. The system works well enough for just enough people to keep going. But unfortunately, I see tipping culture becoming even more common, showing up in places it never used to, and in ways that continue to feel more invasive. The main takeaway is consumers are pushing back. And with nearly 9 in 10 Americans saying this has gone too far, something will have to give. How that pushback manifests over the next year or two, well, that's what remains to be seen. But when enough people start questioning the rules of a system, well, that's usually when it all starts to crack.
Very, very well put together video. Very, very informative. Link to original video will be in the description below. It's coming from Established Context channel. So guys, yeah, if you guys want to see that video, it will be linked in the description. But yeah, very interesting stuff around the whole world of tipping culture. Look, a lot of you guys, I'll be so curious to see what you guys have to say on this topic. Where do you guys lie on it? Do you like the fact that tipping is the way it is, especially now with like all of this stuff around inflation and cost of living crisis going up? I know it's definitely a thing in the US and it's definitely a thing in the UK, and we're feeling it. So, you know, there's that element of people aren't going to be as likely to want to tip these days because, you know, they're already tipping everywhere else, and on top of that, they all pay for their own stuff. So people are less likely to think about others when their own stuff is, you know, going. So tips might go down in that sense. And then if that happens, then, you know, the people that work in those jobs are going to be kind of screwed in a sense because they rely so much on the tips. But then there's also a thing of tipping can bring you like a potential to earn so much more, especially if people are tipping a lot. So there's, you know, people wanting to hang on to it because the upside is there, but it's not as stable. Like this is really interesting. I didn't even think tipping. I didn't think this video was gonna be deep like that. I thought because in the UK, the way we paid the waiters and stuff, it's like higher wages, the food prices are more, but like that's just norm. But that's just not the case in the US. So it's like that's interesting. That's different. That's really different. Yeah, when I came to the US, that sounded crazy to me that, you know, tipping was like that. But watching this video, like, and seeing how kind of complex this whole thing is, how deep it's gone, I'm like, wow. Yeah, mad. Guys, you guys have got to let me know. Like I said, let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know where you standing on this. Do you think tipping culture is out of control? And yeah, guys, if you made this point, comment down a purple heart so I know who my real ones are. Shout out to you guys who made this point. You guys know I love you guys. I love you guys so much. You guys support me so much. You watch through to the end. I see your comments. I see you guys always there. You guys are the best. And yeah, guys, of course, look, don't forget to check out some more videos coming your way. I didn't end the video, but of course, guys, like the video before heading out. And again, road to 60K. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm your boy JayFlex, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.